This is Western Muerto Buddha, and today we're going to be talking about apologies. A while back, I remember hearing this Claudia Scheinbaum, and shit, I might as well just read it. Yes, the former Mexican president AMLO sent a formal letter to Spain, King Felipe. I forgot what number that is. In 2019, demanding an apology for abuses committed against indigenous populations during the 1600 Spanish conquest. Initially, the Spanish government and the crown firmly rejected the request. This long-standing historical dispute even led current President Claudia Sheinbaum to exclude King Philip from her presidential inauguration. However, King Philip subsequently, am I pronouncing that word right?
Subsequently,
there you go, acknowledged much abuse took place during the conquest of the Americas. This gesture ultimately allowed the two leaders to meet at the National Palace in Mexico City, putting an end to the years-long diplomatic rift. You know, I feel like what happened during the colonial era is soon going to start to reemerge, and it's going to be a pretty good reflection to modern day specific ethnicities as cultures. And I will make a video about this soon, but I have a feeling that probably within the next 50 to probably 10 years, the demographic known as the Anglo-white people, that I call them now on, are going to be having the biggest identity crisis similar to that of Black Americans and Native Latino Americans. And it's not going to be the same identity crisis. It's more of an identity crisis in terms of, like, do I really want to associate myself with such a dark history? But like I said, that's a entirely different video. This video is about apologies. So if you don't know what happened during the colonial era, under the Spanish rule, indigenous women in Mexico faced severe marginalization, exploitation, and drastic loss of societal status. Stripped of political and religious autonomy they once held in pre-Columbian society, they were subjected to forced labor, widespread sexual exploitation, and rigid racial hierarchy that relegated them to second-class citizens. Yeah, so when they conquered a lot of indigenous tribes, I know this is like this one famous art piece where it's a woman and she has her baby like strapped to her back. And the reason why is because she was forced to still do labor and have her child right behind her. It was almost like a baby carriage, but she was working, farming, mining, shit like that. But I think the most disturbing was the whole sexual exploitation and violence. The conquest and subsequent colonization were heavily characterized by sexual violence and abuse. Indigenous women were often viewed as commodities, serving as bearers for the Spanish army, given away as gifts, or used as slave labor. They were highly vulnerable to abuse by employers, government officials, and judicial system. I cannot pronounce that word either. Anyways, but yeah, You can read the whole thing. It's pretty disturbing. This is just like one like little glimpse into the whole like what happened after like the Aztec Empire and Mayans and all that stuff. Another one is right here. During the Spanish conquest of the Americas, sexual violence against indigenous women were widespread and systematic and used as deliberate tool of subjugation and control. Historians and theorists often describe this phenomenon as a conquest of rape. It was weaponized sexual violence to break tribal resistance, assert racial dominance, and dismantle the social structures of indigenous societies. The role of sexual violence in the conquest. Rather than being as an incidental byproduct of warfare, sexual assault by Spanish soldiers and conquistadors served several distinct, overlapping oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. How am I in the world?
Strategic.
Strategic functions. Psychological warfare, raping indigenous women was used to humiliate indigenous men and signal complete total dominance over the conquered population. Destruction of social structures. In many pre-Columbian societies, women held significant political, spiritual, and economic power. Targeting women directly undermined the marital. Oh, come on, I know how to pronounce this. Matrilineal, fuck. Matrilineal. And then this other word. Fuck, come on. There we go.
Egalitarian.
Organizational structures of these tribes. Spoils of war. Conquistadors operated under a framework of machismo and racial superiority, viewing indigenous bodies and lands as property to be claimed, distributed, and exploited. Enforced sex trafficking. Early colonial operations involved the literal trading and selling of indigenous women and young girls for sexual labor, a practice documented in the journals of Christopher Columbus and his contemporary chronicles. Yeah, in fact, after the Aztec city Tenochtitlan, cannot pronounce their city, but after the Aztec city was destroyed, the first thing that they did was basically built a whorehouse, but it was more like sex slaves, comfort women, if that would be more understandable to understand. Quite literally, the first comfort women in the world during this time. And it kind of makes you feel very sad for them, because I started looking into why, like, some people are saying that, oh, Latinas hate black women. And I wondered to myself, like, let me look into that. And I just figured that, oh, when they brought black slaves to Mexico, and they were also slaves, was it like this whole idea of like, oh, how can I not get punished? You know what I mean? Like, if you're, picture yourself as a brown native woman, and you know, Spanish soldier has you as his little plaything. Not only that, you're like the little maid, and you have no say in anything. Like, the dude is gonna try to have some like stress relief, and he's gonna be using you. And then once black slaves come into the picture, it's like, how can I not get punished as much? Oh, let me just have them get punished more than me. It's a very sad mindset of like, oh, I don't want to get hurt anymore. But yeah, anyways, this is Geronimo. He is an Apache. He's a very famous dude. I feel like a lot of white people who are into like Native American history know about this guy, which is really sad, because technically Geronimo and many other Native American tribes technically are Mexicans during the time when like most of America, if not pretty much like half of it, was part of Mexico. And I believe he even had like a Spanish name. I forgot his name, but it was like Jose something. But anyways, prominent Chiricahua Apache medicine man and strategist who fiercely resisted the encroachment of Mexican and U.S. forces onto his ancestral homeland. His lifelong battles began after Mexican soldiers slaughtered his family. He led a quarter of the U.S. Army on the run before his final surrender in 1886. Yeah, like I mean, this guy is, like I said, he's a badass, bro. Born in, yeah, I'm gonna skip through I cannot pronounce his name. Goyacala, I think, meaning the one who yawns. Though not a hereditary, I think that's how you say it, right?
Hereditary.
Gotcha. Tribal chief, he became a highly respected spiritual leader and warrior. While he and other Apache men were away trading, Mexican troops attacked his camp, brutally killing his mother, his wife, Alopi, and his 3 children. Consumed by grief and desire for vengeance, he dedicated his life to fighting those he believed threatened his people. Yeah, I mean, bro, if you ever wanted to make like a vengeance story, bro, this guy is probably the best one you probably ever make. Like this, like a Geronimo movie would probably be the best movie of all time, if done right. But yeah, he was fighting Mexican government and all that, right? Well, this is why I believe the Mexican government should apologize to the Apache tribe. Yes, Mexican regional governments legally paid for Apache scalps during the 19th century. Faced with intense Apache and Comanche raids that devastated northern communities and lacking a well-funded federal army, the northern Mexican states turned to a subsidized scalp hunting system known as the scalp laws or Piyorito de Gorilla scale of bounties. Beginning in 1835, states like Sonora, Chihuahua, and Colima formalized payout structures to incentivize private mercenary armies and local volunteers. And then that's the amount that you would get for a person. At the time, a single warrior scalp was worth more than a full year's salary for an average worker. Bounty hunters were legally permitted to keep an Apache livestock or property they captured. Prominent mercenaries. James Kirker, he's an asshole, brought 182 scalps. Wow, that's how many people he killed, technically. A former Texas Ranger, John Julian, I cannot pronounce his last name, Gaunton again, he initially secured contracts with Chihuahua and later moved to Sonora to hunt Apache strongholds along the U.S.-Mexico border. And then this is how things got out of hand. The program eventually devolved into widespread chaos because local officials could rarely differentiate between the scalps of raiding Apaches and those of other tribes or even Mexican citizens. Mercenaries began massacring peaceful indigenous communities and Mexican agriculture peasants to cash in on the rewards. Once local authorities discovered the Glutton and other gangs were killing Mexican citizens for profits, the state governments revoked the contracts and placed bounties on the hunters' heads. While the boom period for professional scalp hunting tapered off after the mid 1800th century, some of these regional laws remain on books for decades. Yep. That's why, honestly, bro, that's also the time where, like, the Wild West was crazy. You know, like, a lot of people say, like, oh, it wasn't that fucking crazy. No, it wasn't fucking crazy for our probably Anglo-white people, but for a lot of Native Americans and even, like, Mexicans, shit was out of hand. Nothing was being controlled. The Mexican government has never issued a formal apology specifically to the Chiricahua Apache tribe. However, there is important historical context surrounding this lack of an apology along this border government actions regarding indigenous groups. Regional conflicts. During the 19th century, the Chihuahua Apache in Mexican states such as, engaged in brutal, decades-long conflicts. Mexican authorities often targeted the Chihuahua, including women and children, due to centuries of raiding, territorial disputes, and mutual warfare. In turn, Apache warriors fiercely resisted Mexican and American military forces. Other state apologies. While the Chihuahua have never received an apology, former Mexican president issued historical apologies to other indigenous groups who suffered government persecution. In 2021, he formally apologized to the Maya, and later the year, he apologized to the Yuki people for historic state-sponsored crimes and violence. Prior requests, when the U.S. military used the name Geronimo as a code name for the raid on Osama bin Laden, leaders publicly expressed outrage and demanded apologies from the U.S. government for equating their reviewed historical leader to terrorists, but no formal apology regarding historical Mexican wars has materialized. And then same thing. It just they never fully apologized, mostly because like I said before, they fought each other. Like they fought each other, and I believe at some point it's because so when Spain was basically ruling over Mexico, they had like sort of like a deal where like, if you deal with these guys, we'll give you like basically supplies. I think they were trying to give like the Comanche supplies to get them to stop. Have like a group that can control the region. And the Apache were just like the one group that they had to like sacrifice to control the region. No, the Mexican government has never formally apologized to any Apache tribe. See, while historical Apache bands in the Mexican military engaged in devastating conflicts for centuries, modern diplomatic apologies from Mexico have been directed towards the other indigenous tribes, notably Maya and the Yuki. The relationship between the Mexican state and prior colonial authorities and Apache was marked by intense warfare, with Apache raiding Mexican settlements and Mexican states offering bounties for Apache scalps. Despite these historical grievances, Mexico's recent truth and reconciliation. Come on, I know this word.
Reconciliation.
Reconciliation efforts have forced elsewhere. You get the point. But in my personal opinion, like, okay, Maya I understand, but Yuki, it's the same thing. Like, there was actually like intense battles with the Yuki people. They may not have like kicked ass as like the Apache, but there was forced like marriages, to the point where like women were being like forced to marry into somebody else and practice somebody else's culture. And I'm thinking to myself, like, bro, how are you not gonna be apologizing for that? Like, I'm not trying to say like apologize for like the scalping, but at the very least, apologize for the intense rivalry. You know what I mean? Apologize for the battles. Like, be the bigger person is what I'm trying to ask. Like, you were attacking people that were part of your civilizations either way. And not only that, Geronimo even knew Spanish. And he blamed the Mexican government for the whole scalping system. Like, he like, the battles became more intense because of that. In fact, I think even the U.S. Government, or just there was businesses that even took over that whole system too, where the whole scalping became more and more like a reward. That's how a lot of them profited. So, like I said, at the very least, know what to apologize and just be the bigger person, in my personal opinion. But, like I said, I personally would want Mexico to apologize and, at the very least, visit Geronimo's grave and apologize to him for, like, his wife and kids, his mom. A lot of Native Americans, the way we treat our families is very much like how these guys treated their families. And a lot of people don't know that. They just think it's always been like that. Of course, obviously, but it's always a beautiful thing to look into. Who taught you this? You know what I mean? I don't know. But anyways, my lunch is over. Peace.